In June, during Nevada's primary voting, some voters had to wait in line several hours to cast their ballots during a pandemic. So on Monday, the state's Democratic governor signed a bill into law that would give voters the ability to cast a ballot by mail as long as it's postmarked by Election Day. And now, Trump campaign officials, without any evidence to back up their claims, say the new law is ripe for voter fraud. And they're suing Nevada now for expanding this mail-in voting in the middle of a public health crisis.
Let's take the state like Nevada, which in the dead of night, these Democrats push forward this law that, as we know, that even come Election Day, you could still cast a ballot 3 days later if you don't have a postmark, or 7 days later if you have a postmark. So let's say, Brianna, you vote for Joe Biden. Then you find out in Nevada that President Trump wins. You can go to your family members, you can go to your colleagues and say, guess what? Do you still have that mail-in vote? Let's cast it, because you can cast it several days after the election.
No, you can't. Nevadans cannot vote after the election in Nevada. It has to be postmarked on or before Election Day. This is the part of Nevada's law that Mercedes Schlapp is cynically misrepresenting. In order for a mail ballot to be counted, the mail ballot must be hand-delivered or mailed to the county or city clerk by the set closing time for polls. If the ballot is mailed, it must be postmarked on or before Election Day and received by the clerk within 7 days. So that's 1 week after the election. Then here's the part that the Trump campaign advisor erroneously claims would allow someone to cast a ballot without a postmark to avoid deadlines. It says if a mail ballot is received by mail within 3 days after the election and the date of the postmark cannot be determined. So this is the rare case where there is a postmark, but the date is illegible, right? It says the mail ballot shall be deemed to have been postmarked on or before the day of election. They don't get the full 7 days there. Now, this is not unique to Nevada. Many states have provisions like this for mail-in ballots. And Nevada isn't just willy-nilly mailing ballots and applications to everyone. They are sending them to active, registered voters. And Nevada becomes the 8th state to adopt universal vote by mail, giving voters more options this year. But like I mentioned in the interview, the Trump administration has hamstrung the post office. It has prioritized commercial package delivery over mail delivery. It has threatened to cut postal service funds instead of boosting them during a pandemic, only recently giving the Postal Service bailout funds. And even then, it was just 1/7 of what the Postal Service, which is run by a Trump donor, by the way, says it needs. So I challenge Mercedes over her claims that all of this leads to widespread fraud, for which there is no evidence. But last night, Mercedes tweeted out a voter fraud database by the Conservative Heritage Foundation to try to make her point. But this is actually where I found the numbers that I cited to her during our interview, because they actually show that widespread voter fraud, it doesn't happen. Voter fraud is statistically insignificant. For example, if you look at Nevada in this database, there were only 6 instances of voter fraud over 38 years in the entire state, none of them related to mail-in voting, according to Heritage.